Hello everyone, welcome to our data analysis course. I am Bai. Today I mainly want to share some of my work experience from several years as a data analyst in the KPL. First of all, what is data analysis? Through many years of work, I found three key points that I want to share with everyone. The first key point is turning subjective content into standardized and objective content. For example, we use player data to judge which player is stronger, but the evaluation standard for every role is different. For mid lane players, we may look at damage output converted from economy or damage per minute. For junglers, we pay more attention to economy per minute and KDA data. Data analysis also exists in many other industries such as financial stock K-line charts. In fact, every industry has its own way of doing data analysis, so if we want to do good data analysis, we first need to understand the industry itself. For example, if we want to analyze Honor of Kings data, we first need to understand Honor of Kings. Then we can use data analysis techniques together with our own game understanding to create things that are helpful for the game. There is also a lot of in-game data in Honor of Kings that everyone can pay attention to. For example, for junglers, whether they reach level 8 by the 4-minute mark is now a very important indicator. The second point is turning abstract concepts into concrete ones. For example, with the charts we create, like the charts everyone sees in different industries, they may look simple on the surface, but they actually contain a huge amount of data. We may organize thousands or even millions of data points into one simple chart so everyone can understand it, allowing massive amounts of information to be shown through a simple graph. This chart shows the number of games and win rates for a team on red side and blue side during a certain period of time. There is actually a lot of information presented in it, but you can very directly see this team's red side and blue side match count and win rate over the past 4 weeks. This is a more complete chart. The chart on the right shows the number of matches played on red side and blue side, along with the total number of matches. The chart on the left shows the trend over time, including the changes in red side win rate, blue side win rate, and overall win rate during this month. These are actually quite complex and abstract concepts, but we can make them concrete through charts. An important sign of good data work is allowing people who do not understand data to understand the chart. Data presentation should be kept as simple as possible. Some complicated charts may not be intended for non-professionals. Many players and coaches may not have a strong foundation in mathematics or statistics, so we need to make our charts as concise as possible. At the same time, we can use colors to present data more effectively. You can see here that I did not use a lot of text labels or annotations on the chart, but everyone can still understand the data through the colors. The blue color represents blue side matches, and the red color represents red side matches. Even though the chart on the left includes labels, I still used very clear colors to distinguish red side and blue side, and I added an axis to show the progression over time. All of this is done to help people understand the information in the chart more easily. So when creating charts, we should make good use of color combinations to present information. The third point is simplifying complex content. It is the same principle. On a single image or report, we can use pictures or charts to display content that cannot easily be explained through text alone. During BP on stage, there are only around 3 to 5 minutes in total. We need to deliver massive amounts of data to the coaching staff and players so they can make decisions together. This requires us to make our data presentation as concise as possible and focus on the key points. I think these are the three most important core ideas in data analysis. The example shown here is part of the database we normally use. This is only a small portion of it. The image on the right is something we show to the coaches and also to everyone here. It displays the hero pool of Team DRG over the past few years. It lists the heroes used by each player according to their role and number of matches. You can see that player Hua Yuan used Guan Yu the most. I also included the number of games, win rate, and the last time the hero was used. The last usage time is also a very important piece of data. Some players may use a hero frequently during the first half of the regular season, but in the third round, because of patch changes or differences in game understanding, they may stop using it as much. This affects your judgment of how likely the hero is to appear on stage. Of course, hero usage rate is only one aspect. We also use many other data dimensions when evaluating opponents, which I will discuss later. Overall, the data shown here is extracted from a massive database as some classic examples. Our database does not only record the data of the specific team we need, it records every match from every team and every hero used by every player. The KPL alone has more than 10,000 rows of data. Organizing over 10,000 rows of data into a single page is exactly what it means to simplify massive and complex information for everyone to understand. Next, let us talk about the second topic, which is the data analysis methods we commonly use in KPL training and competition. The first is scrim data. During the training process, the largest amount of data we get comes from scrims. Through time-based variables, we can observe the growth of a player or an entire team in certain areas during training, allowing us to identify where the team is strong, where it is weak, and where improvement is needed. Once goals are set, we can also see whether those goals have been achieved. For scrims, we look at win rates. The chart on the left shows the relationship between game duration and game results for a team during a certain period of time. I use different colors to represent different game lengths divided into 10 to 15 minutes, 15 to 20 minutes, and games longer than 20 minutes. You can see that our team's win rate is relatively high in games that end between 10 and 15 minutes. After 15 minutes, the team's win rate starts to decline. At that point, we can discuss with the coaching staff and specifically study what we are not doing well between 15 and 20 minutes and then carry out targeted practice. As for games longer than 20 minutes, I do not think they are especially meaningful because data needs to reach a certain volume before it becomes a reliable reference. I also want to point out that data analysis is not always absolutely correct. For example, in the Chinese server, heroes like Athena have very high win rates, but whether the hero is actually strong cannot be determined by win rate alone because very few people play Athena. We must also consider pick rate when evaluating the overall win rate data. I am not sure whether overseas servers have systems that show the overall win rates of each hero, but I also use this kind of information to help recommend heroes for the team. My method is to look for heroes with both high pick rates and high win rates. If we only look at win rate, we may find heroes that are not actually very strong but still have good win rates because their pick rates are extremely low. Usually only highly skilled specialists play those heroes, which creates a kind of survivor bias. People may think the hero is strong, but in reality the players using that hero are simply very experienced with it and ordinary players rarely touch it. For example, heroes like Shang Guan on the Chinese server are generally considered not very strong in professional play, but they still have decent win rates in ranked games because very few people play them, and those who do have practiced the hero extensively. It does not necessarily mean the hero itself is very strong. In scrims, we also list each player's average economy per game and economy per minute. Sometimes I separate the data between wins and losses, which helps the team better identify areas for improvement. Besides economy, we can also analyze damage, damage taken, and many other aspects through data in order to identify all kinds of problems. These are also some examples from our recent scrims. All of this can help us improve. The second is match data. Match data is usually used to study opponents. The image, besides presenting the opponent's hero pool data, we also create more detailed data analysis. Take a look. We analyze which heroes the opponent likes to use against our heroes. The chart on the left shows the matchup win rates of certain hero combinations in the KPL during a specific period of time. Let me explain this chart. The heroes in the top row are matched against the heroes in the left column. The number at the intersection represents the total number of games they faced each other. The number below it represents how many times the hero on top won against the hero on the left. To put it simply, Dun and Dahlia faced each other 24 times and Dun won 11 of those games. Ali faced Dahlia 31 times and won 16 games. Here, Agudo faced Genren 21 times but only won 3 games. Through this kind of data, we can identify matchups with unusually high or low win rates. For example, if the win rate is above 60% or 70%, then we can study it further. For example, with Agudo against Genren, Agudo only won 3 games. First, I would check whether my data was recorded incorrectly. If the data is correct, then I would investigate the related drafts and lineups involving Agudo against Genren and then provide better BP suggestions for my team. The chart on the right works in a similar way. It shows hero matchup data for a specific team. This data is selected only under candidate conditions. This team likes to pick Dun against Oghren. They picked it 4 times and played the matchup 4 times, although Dun was also used against other heroes. However, if we see a situation where one hero is almost always picked against another specific hero, for example, if Dun is consistently picked into Oghren, then during the match we can predict that once we pick Oghren, the opponent will most likely pick Dun. We can prepare in advance by banning it early or making other preparations, not only for BP, but also for our in-game tactics. This is one of the major ways data analysis helps with BP. Besides hero pools, we also judge the direction of a match through the opponent's hero combinations and win rates. Through hero pools, matchup data, and the opponent's drafting order, we can roughly simulate what kind of lineup the opponent will choose when we draft certain compositions. Combined with our own understanding of the current patch, we can basically simulate the BP for the first game, or even the entire BO5. This is how match research helps our training and preparation. The third major aspect of our work is creating heat maps and analyzing match replays. In China, we have a unified platform that can generate these heat maps for us, allowing us to quickly see the movement routes of each team and every role. We can also compare many different replays together. For example, the KPL spring has just ended, and the stronger teams mostly focused on playing around the top side of the map. Looking at the two finalists, KSG and Chengdu AG, we can use these heat maps to observe their movement patterns, identify around what time they start grouping up, and determine their main attack points. Through this, we can analyze the style of each team. For example, teams like Jinan RW, Beijing WB, and Chengdu AG often have supports that prefer following the jungler. Some teams prefer having the support follow the farm lane, some prefer following mid lane, and others prefer following the clash lane. All of this can be identified through replay analysis, allowing us to predict the opponent's habits in advance and help our players prepare responses ahead of time. Next, I want to show you one of the tools I recently made and share some of my data analysis tools with everyone. What we are looking at now is a hero and lineup combined query tool. First, let me show everyone the database behind this tool. It contains more than 5,000 rows of data. It records the time of each match, red side and blue side, the result of the match, the players participating, their lane roles, the heroes they used, the 10 banned heroes in order, summoner skills, team names and opponents. This K row here is an auxiliary row that I created. It is used to indicate which game of the BO5 this match belongs to. It also includes basic data such as kills, deaths, assists, equipment and match duration. Match duration can be used to calculate damage per minute and economy per minute. Gold can also be used to calculate gold to damage conversion. We can also calculate average deaths and assist ratios to create KDA values. This table can already produce some basic data analysis, although I have not fully completed everything yet. After joining the new team, I realized our coaches really like checking opponent lineups, so I created this tool. It includes all data up to April. On the left side, I created 5 buttons that allow you to search by roles, which are Clash Lane, Jungle, Mid Lane, Farm Lane, and Support. This section contains the overall KPL data, and you can see how many times each role has used different heroes in the KPL. You can also enter the team you want to search for, and then check how many games they played with a certain hero and what their win rate is. All we need to do is click on a hero. For example, if we are searching for Beijing WB and click on Ma Chao's icon, we can see how many games Beijing WB used Ma Chao and what lineups were paired with him. You can see that Ma Chao was paired with Yang Jian twice and Luban Master twice. Since they only used it twice, we can only make a likely conclusion. Beijing WB used Ma Chao twice, and both times they paired him with Yang Jian. Since Luban Master and Yang Jian are usually tied together in the KPL, we can use our own game understanding to judge that when they draft Ma Chao, Yang Jian and Luban Master together, Luban Master and Yang Jian are functioning as a linked combination, while Ma Chao mainly serves the wave pushing role. We can also check team-specific hero data. For example, for Beijing WB's player Zemo, we can compare his Seekong's gold per minute, damage taken per death, and KDA against other KPL players. Through this type of simple data comparison, we can judge whether his proficiency on the hero is above or below the average KPL level. However, everyone knows that Zemo's Seekong is extremely strong, so data analysis only becomes meaningful after accumulating a sufficient number of games. The main function of this table is information lookup. It allows us to check every player's usage of a specific hero, including the bans in the draft, the lineup combinations, and the opponent's lineup. This can provide a lot of useful support. I will share this Excel with you. Since we don't have much time to explain in details, you can do some research on how to make your own data analysis templates, and this is actually not very difficult. Nowadays, there are many tutorials online, and AI has become very advanced as well. If you are interested, you can ask AI to explain these Excel functions, and it will teach you how to use them. Next, I want to talk about some of my thoughts on writing data analysis reports. There are many tutorials online about data analysis itself, but very few actually teach people how to design layouts or write data analysis reports. However, I think this is extremely important, especially because the reader's visual experience matters a lot. I think good layout design is just as important as data analysis skills. First, we need to distinguish the target audience and the occasion for the report. The first type is a more formal report, such as a meeting report or a formal monthly summary. If it is a digital version, we usually use a PDF, a long high-resolution image, or directly print it on A4 paper and hand it over. In this situation, people have plenty of time to read it. The way we write reports is also closely related to the amount of reading time the audience has. If people have a lot of time to read, then we should make the data as detailed as possible. The example here is our scrim data. Since everyone has several days to review scrim data, they may look at it today and then want to review it again after more scrims a few days later, so we can make it very detailed. This is only one page of the report. It includes data from wins and losses, as well as all kinds of statistics for each hero. It even includes comparison timelines that show data comparison charts for players like Nuan Yang. For this kind of scrim data, since people have enough time to study it, we should make it as detailed as possible. For data being used during matches, we need to focus only on the key points. During official matches, coaches need to quickly read information such as how many times the opponent used certain heroes, how many times they used specific combinations, and what lineups they recently played. We need to compress all of this information into a single page as much as possible, just like the example shown here. This is a type of document we may use during matches. It focuses on our opponent, Wolves. It contains several of their recent BO5 lineups, their commonly used combinations and win rates, while other pages include their tendencies and our alternative plans. Different report situations must be separated clearly so we can determine what kind of data should be produced and whether it should be concise or detailed. There are also informal types of data reports. Informal reports usually refer to things like game updates or sudden ideas where we want to create some quick data analysis to share with everyone. For example, this image was something I made after Zhang Fei received an update last year. His shield was buffed because the scaling changed from physical bonus scaling to maximum HP scaling. Everyone knew it was a buff, but nobody knew exactly how large the buff was. So I created a simple chart. I tested Zhang Fei with a full 6-item build. I included the equipment, arcana, and all related stats in the image, and I labeled all the conditions directly on the chart. These conditions must be written clearly, otherwise readers will not know under what circumstances the buff applies. From the image we can see that in the new version the shield value became 2311, while in the old version it was only 1687, meaning the shield increased by 625. For this kind of single hero data, after a patch update, we can present the old version values and the new version values side by side, then directly calculate the exact amount of the buff. This makes the information much clearer for readers. In these situations, we can also make the report more detailed. If we really want to go in depth, we can even create a formal report specifically for it, including all possible equipment builds and conditions in as much detail as possible. For example, we could analyze whether Zhang Fei's shield is stronger or weaker at different levels and with different builds, and divide the report into early game, mid game, and late game stages. Ultimately, the type of report we create depends on who requested it and what they want to know. If a player only wants to know how much stronger Zhang Fei becomes with a full build, then we can simply show them this image directly. But if everyone considers it very important, then we should create a formal report to explain it thoroughly. Another important point when writing reports is defining the theme clearly. We need to know what the report is about, what the main focus is, and what supporting elements are needed to help explain that focus. We should also translate professional terminology into language that non-professionals can understand and explain things differently depending on the professional background of the audience. For example, if we mention KDA and the audience does not play games, then we should explain the KDA formula and its purpose. But for everyone watching today's lessons, including players, managers, and team staff involved in competitive training, we do not need to explain what KDA means because everyone already understands it. We also need to clearly label the source of the data. For example, whether the data comes from official matches, scrims, or overall in-game statistics. We should also clearly identify the analysis target, whether it is a specific player, hero, or an entire team's overall data. This radar chart compares several statistics between Wolves player Gui Qi and Wuhan E-Star Pro player Tan Ran. The dark blue outer circle below represents the average data for Clash Lane players. I think including the average Clash Lane data is very important because it allows us to see not only the standout strengths of these two players, but also the differences between them. When creating charts, if we only compare the data of these two players, the differences may not appear very obvious. In that situation, we can reduce the scale of the chart dimensions and stretch the spacing as much as possible, so the differences become easier to see. The next key point I want to talk about is using as many images and charts as possible when presenting data reports. This is because the human brain processes visual information much faster than text. In fact, people naturally think in concrete images, while text itself is still relatively abstract. If we directly place images into the report, especially during matches, coaches can react faster and it can help the team make decisions more quickly. Especially when looking at this example, you still may immediately notice a huge difference. If there are 6 or 7 players in the sheet and you are reading all this text, it can become overwhelming. However, if we replace the hero names with hero icons, everyone can understand it much more clearly at a glance. We can even add color coding to the numbers. For example, players or heroes with win rates above a certain percentage can be highlighted with one color. Heroes with both high pick rates and high win rates can be highlighted with another color. This also helps teams identify key information about the opponent more effectively during matches. Talking about color usage in data reports, color design is actually very important because colors can communicate a huge amount of information. Let me give an example first. I have worked for several teams before, and whenever I write reports for team owners, I usually start by taking colors from the team's logo to establish the main theme color of the report. You can see the text colors here, including the colors used in the charts below. Both Wolves and WB mainly use orange as their primary color. However, for Wolves, I use more orange as the background color. For WB, because I noticed their uniforms are white, I adjusted the background to white as well, creating a different visual style. This allows people to immediately distinguish them. The image in the middle feels more like Beijing WB's style, while the image on the left feels more like Wolves' style. The report on the right was created during my time with Beijing JDG, where I used light red tones. I also want to explain why I did not use pure red as the background color. Orange can work as a background color, but red is too bright. Red is not suitable as a background color. When discussing color, there are 3 main elements. The first is the color name itself, such as red, orange, yellow, green, cyan, blue, and purple. The second is saturation. Red has extremely high saturation, and highly saturated colors are not suitable as background colors. However, since the team's primary theme color was red, we needed to adjust the saturation and brightness levels to achieve the desired result. Gradient colors are also a very useful method. Comparing the right side and the left side, even if I remove the text labels, everyone can still distinguish the difference in hero usage through the colors alone. White represents heroes that were never played. Green represents low usage. Yellow indicates higher usage, while red represents data that requires special attention. Using gradients to represent the amount of data is one of the common color schemes used in data analysis. Another method is using analogous colors. For example, everything here belongs to the red color family, but by adjusting brightness, saturation, and other parameters, we can still present different kinds of data. Our main theme uses light red, while the labels and charts below use a darker red. This makes the report look more visually appealing. Using complementary colors or distinctly different colors is useful for representing opposing types of data, such as red side and blue side in games. For red side and blue side, we do not even need text labels. The colors alone allow readers to immediately understand which side is red side and which side is blue side. We can also use pie charts to compare quantities. The main concept here is contrast colors. We can also use completely different colors. For example, using the 3 primary colors red, yellow, and blue in the same chart to represent different kinds of data. This brings up an important point about when to use the same color and when to use different colors. When we want to emphasize comparison between data sets, we should use different colors to display them. For example, in this chart, we wanted to show how game duration and win rate affect our team, so we used different colors to highlight those differences and help us adjust the team's overall approach. We also use conditional formatting here. Each row highlights the top 3 highest values. These highlights can be adjusted manually as well. For example, we can identify which hero gives a player their highest performing statistic. Through this, we can judge player growth, compare them with other players, or compare them with average match data to evaluate whether the player performs well on that hero and how they are doing in scrims, allowing us to make predictions for official matches. Here are several additional color schemes. First of all, our color design should always follow a unified system. For example, the left side follows one system, while the right side follows another system. On the left side, the same color is used to represent the same type of data. You can see that overall damage is represented with red, while economy is represented with yellow. Using one color consistently for one type of data is completely fine. The right side also works well. There, one color represents one player across different statistics, allowing us to clearly see the player's performance across different data dimensions at a glance. Of course, there can also be many different approaches. Everyone can adjust these methods according to their own habits and preferences. Alright, that is all for today. Thank you everyone.